It's going to be a shame.
Right. So we'll get Ards in as well. Let's get a little bit of thingy, a little bit.
I'm happy to go, shortly, and he can join.
Right. So we'll keep it like this, and we'll get Ards in afterwards. Big Ards. We're going to have us three first, and then when Paul goes, then we'll bring you in.
All right,
have you started? Rolling. Yeah, so basically...
Content over everything!
Yeah. So basically we're going to be kind of continuing our chat we had last week about the New Zealand attack, which I condemn, and condolences to the family, including somebody that we know online who said his relatives were murdered in an attack. So one of the individuals that we have on our live chat, so condolences to them. What we want to kind of bring it on today is like the ideology of the attacker, and why did he think he thought it was totally acceptable to go into a mosque and kill these people. One of the things is, now I'm not going to say that the certain individual I'm going to mention next is connected with it. Let me just clarify this. I'm not saying that. But I do feel that individuals, sorry Ralph, I do get on with you personally, but I've got to condemn you outright. And in my opinion, if you don't retract what you say, we're then on the opposite ends of what I call, people that I can support and people that I'm against. And I'm against anybody that says that, New Zealand was like, a target practicing. And basically, we've got to condemn stuff like that outright. We can't have any kind of, he's an okay guy. No, if you said that, then I've got to question your morality and who you are as a person. So I'll still talk to you, but like I said, I'll still talk to, an extremist, even Andrew Chowdhury or whatever. But
or even me.
Even you. So I do see you as an extremist in that sense. And one of the things I did hear, which kind of seems similar to the guy that under attack, was that he feels like the white race, especially white Christianity, is incompatible with Muslims and Islam. It's like he just so that I can just kind of like elaborate on that, is that from my understanding, if I've said this wrong, I'd appreciate if you clarified that he feels like Islam, he respects it.
Who's he?
We're talking about an individual like Ralph. An individual like Ralph, or people of that ilk, believe that Islam is something that he respects and sees that as a strong culture, but it's incompatible with the West or Christians. So it's either one or the other. That's the kind of gist I got. Was that the gist you got?
I mean, go on.
The problem is the West isn't in agreement with what it believes anyway. The West is a patchwork of different ideas and ideologies. Some people are very traditional, very conservative. Some are very radical. Some people think transvestites and transsexuals are kind of normal and want to promote the normalness of that in schools and so on. I don't. A lot of people think this is deviant and is a mental illness. I mean, there is not agreement on many things. Yeah. To talk about the West as if it's a bloc that agrees with a single ideology and agreed set of norms over against Islam is wrong. That may have been true, say, 100 years ago or 200. It's not true today. And I think what the positive contribution that Muslims can make to the West is to, not that people should become Muslim, that they should remind people in the West of those values that Islam still treasures that we have forgotten, we meaning the Westerners. So for example, traditional morality. Let's give an example I know you feel strongly about, a pro-life outlook. So Muslims are against abortion, that is the killing of unborn children in the womb. Now I think that's I've always been pro-life when I was a Christian and now as a Muslim. Now in the West we have this idea of an unborn baby as a woman's right to do with whatever she likes. Now for me that's barbaric and is evil. So we as Muslims can bring in that, remind the West, as Sikhs actually can do the same thing to be honest, that there are important values which we've forgotten and we live in a less humane place literally because of it. Other examples are to do with gender roles. Now this is very controversial, but this is what Islam teaches.
Can we afterwards, can we talk about, so we can go into about the kind of controversy about the schools up in Birmingham afterwards? Because that's kind of like the way that people are saying that Islam is not compatible with the West.
Well, again, the West is not a single entity. The Catholic Church, which of any is the longest existing institution in the West since the 1st century, the Church, teaches that the only appropriate and good place for sexual intimacy is in heterosexual marriage. It says that homosexual acts are sinful and if unrepented can lead to hellfire. Now that sounds like Islam, but actually it's the same kind of teaching. So when these brave parents, Muslim parents and others, not just Muslim parents by the way, other parents are protesting about having their children indoctrinated by LGBT stuff in Birmingham, because parents should have a right to know what their children have been taught, and their children should not be taught ideologies which are fundamentally against normal values, against Islamic values, and so on. And Catholics.
Have you got an age?
And Catholics as well. Just to complete this, Catholics feel the same way. I'm sure virtually all Christians down here would feel the same way as well. But
Make sure you've got mine.
children should not be babies. 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids should not be taught about these things when they're much, much older, when they're adults, 16, 17, fine. But babies, no way.
All right, so
they should be taught about English, about maths, about whatever, but not about sex and about deviant behaviours and all sorts of other things. They shouldn't be taught that. So I'm completely with the Muslim and Catholic parents.
I'm kind of in between. Like I do, but look, I'm for traditional values. I'm for traditional values. But I do believe that children as young as 5 is too young. But 9, 10, 11 is fine with me from that age. Because they're going to meet these individuals. You don't have to agree with someone being transgender.
Can I say something? I think we should be taught tolerance, definitely. Because as we are living in the 21st century, we are going to come across people that we might not accept based on our religious values. So i.e. homosexuals, right? So I think we should be taught tolerance and respect in a sense where there are going to be people out there that you might not agree with their way of life, but we should be taught to acknowledge these people and respect these people, because everybody deserves to be respected.
I'm a person who has same-sex attraction myself, so I'm not saying those people, it's also me. So we should all be having respect. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about teaching children, a little more than babies, about sex and about all these issues. They should not be exposed to that at that age. The parents are outraged, rightly, Muslim and non-Muslim. This is, as you say, for much older children. And it's also the idea of normalising certain lifestyles as well. Like we can go into all the details. That also there's an ideological push here, and this is anti-Islamic because Muslim parents have a right to see their children have a decent education. They're not brainwashed in the latest secular fashions. They're always changing, because I'm sure in 10 years' time, and we already see seeds of it now, it'll be paedophilia. Paedophilia is the right of an adult to have sex with a child. It's got to happen next. And they're having the same conversation. Muslim parents will be objecting. They don't want their children, their babies taught.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that will ever happen.
No, wait, but hang on. How many of us thought gay marriage wouldn't happen 5 years ago? Gay marriage was impossible to conceive of. What, two men getting married?
And the thing is,
unbelievable.
with
and it happens now in law.
But hold on, with paedophiles as well, they actually allow them to change their identity. They make them anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Certain paedophiles, they release them out of prison, even murderers, they give them a new identity.
Yeah.
Now that's not fair on normal people that live next door to a paedophile, but we wouldn't know about it.
I agree.
All right, so look, what I want to say is that I think what you're doing is what you're accusing others of doing, which is that scaremongering. In the sense that they're trying to say, oh, Islam's going to come in, they're going to start indoctrinating our children and making them, become Muslim and stuff like that, and they're kind of trying to take over. You're kind of saying a similar kind of scare story about people who are gay or might be transgender, that they're going to then
but the thing is, hold on, the gay agenda is actually being pushed though. Islam is not being pushed. Islam is not being forced down your throat. And the thing is, they're teaching young children about it. They're teaching young children about the LGBT. That agenda is definitely being pushed down, and it's being pushed down people's throats. They've got gays. Hold on, Raj. They've got boys and girls and girls in storybooks. So, and the thing is, children learn at young ages. They're still learning. They're still developing. So when you're teaching them that from a young age, it's going to stick with them. Islam is not being pushed down people's throats. It's not even being promoted. If anything, it's trying to be silent.
What I'm saying to
you cannot say it's the same thing, though.
No, what I'm saying to you, there's a scaremongering among like the far right that's saying Muslims are coming over, they're trying to indoctrinate. I'm not saying this is true. There's a scaremongering, and I think what you're doing, equating. For me personally, I have traditional values. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really understand homosexuality, but I want to treat them with respect and not abuse them.
That's a given.
But the thing is, I do think that...
It's pushing an agenda on children, that's the...
But what I'm saying is that I think like 10 or 11 years old is okay. I think 5 years old, totally unacceptable in my opinion.
I don't even think 10, 11-year-old is okay.
I agree with you.
I think 16. Because why would a 10, 11-year-old need to learn about sex? I think they shouldn't be having sex at that age. They should be too focused on their education.
Let's clarify something.
And you have to, this is what I'm saying to you, the educational system
I need to clarify
is
something.
Light.
All right, so let's clarify something. I am not saying teach them sex education. What should be taught is that, look, there are people out there that might have two mums. There might be people that we don't have to agree with this,
Okay.
but I might have two dads. There might be people that
Sorry.
were born a boy but made.
Let me tell you the problem.
But you don't go into the intricacies of the process. Just that these people might be there.
Let me explain what the
So
problem
if
is.
that's the case, it
Let
should
me
be the
explain-
same with Muslims then as well.
Let me explain how
It
it is.
should be a
Let me explain the problem is as we Muslims see it.
Are you Muslim, brother?
Yes.
Oh, mashallah.
You got that,
I never knew that.
You're not wearing a hijab, are you Muslim, sister?
I never knew he was Muslim. I swear to God, I never knew he was
A
Muslim.
white man is a Muslim, I know.
I never knew, honestly.
What do you think you were saying last week?
Yeah. You weren't listening to anything I was saying,
No,
were you?
I was. I didn't think he was Muslim, but
Anyway,
mashallah.
but the problem is this, is that Western society is always evolving and changing its moral code. All right?
like this guy.
So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in the 1960s, abortion became acceptable. And that was a big outrage for the Christians. And then contraception, artificial contraception then became widely available. Another big breakthrough. And then physical gay relations became decriminalized in 1967, another watershed. And then gay marriage, and then this, and then this. Now, it's always changing, and Muslims are always being pressured to conform, say, why are you agreeing with Western values? The Western value is always changing. And in the future,
that's why
hang on, let me finish. In future, I do believe that this is not the end of it. We're going to see a further evolution or degradation where paedophilia will be the next thing. And we're already seeing it at the moment. There are people like Peter Tatchell who are saying that sex should be allowed with children.
Yes.
Did he say that?
And yes, he's always said that.
A Pope
He
even
said that- he said that for years.
he didn't know it was wrong not to have sex
But
with a
he's part
child.
of a prominent
Well,
LGBTQ.
yeah, but he's always said to be consistent. He's always been consistent on this. So I think it's the next thing. Now Muslims then are going to be playing. Why aren't you approving of sex with children? I think, good grief, man. We have values rooted in revelation, in the Quran and the Sunnah that never change.
That's
the
right.
Quran says that all sexual behaviour outside of heterosexual marriage is haram. All of it. Are you sure? Oh, yes, I'm sure. So it's all sinful. So Muslims are not going to be conforming.
Mine is allowed.
Muslims are not conforming their values to an ever-changing world, which is always changing its mind about what's right and what's wrong. It's always changing.
Yeah,
We're not
right.
going to do that.
So for me, like I've said, and I've said online, that the white indigenous population need to understand that if you start becoming too liberal, like too far on the liberal side, your society will start to kind of collapse to a certain degree, because you're not going to be able to procreate and stuff like that if you don't get married, if you're aborting babies. Because somebody gave me a statistic that in the last 50 years, something like maybe nearly 10 million babies have been aborted. Yeah. And like I said, I apologise if people have had an abortion and they get upset. I apologise, but I do see it as murder. Yeah. I do. I think it's murder. There is a limit. Like, if someone's got raped or something, I can say, okay, I can understand. I still disagree with it. But the thing is like I said last week, that I believe that if the Muslims had come in the 20s, when the traditional values are much more conservative, I don't think there would be as much as a culture clash. Yeah, I think what's happened is that, like I said, the West had become too liberal, and you have the Muslims, some of them are too orthodox.
I agree. So, and this is the gift that Muslims are making, hopefully, to Britain and France and Germany, United States. We can remind the British people of those values, those healthy, life-giving values, which they have forgotten. Because we used to think, we meaning British people, we used to be pro-life, we used to respect marriage, we used to respect the unborn, we used to respect marriage and not going for divorce and sleeping around, but we've forgotten that. We now live in a world where anything goes, you do what you like, and the consequences are broken families, it's divorce, it's suicide, it's disease, rampant STDs, mental health all over the place. We can remind you not to become Muslims, but say in your own tradition, in your own Christian tradition, these values are there. Go back and find them, rediscover them, live by them, and this will benefit society for the common good. Because we've lost that sense of the common good, because we've gone for extreme individualism where I do what I want, and as long as I don't physically harm you, it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter, because if I'm selfishly living for myself, I'm not having children, I'm not living a responsible traditional life, then I'm harming those around me. And so Muslims can remind, and traditional Sikhs can do this as well, traditional Jews can do it, but you're not here in big numbers, that's the point. Muslims are here in bigger numbers.
But you know what I say
we can remind about the benefits of traditional living, and also the centrality of God. Because British society has forgotten God.
Well, I mean, this is the big.
Can I just add one point? Yeah, like this is how you know we're going backwards. Because the more that they say they're liberated, actually they're going backwards. And we, with this backwards religion, like they say, because to them, some of them say that we're like middle-aged people. Well, why are you wearing a headscarf if you're in the 21st century? Women are able to dress the way that they want. So why are you covered? We live in a world where it's okay to be half naked, but it's not okay to be covered up. And this is how backwards we are. And that's why I agree with you when we say we're here to remind the people of traditional values, because they matter. Because the more free that you get, the more that your society breaks down.
But we do have a middle ground, though.
That's why Islam is there to preserve one of 5 things, and one of them is lineage, right? That's why we have to get married so that we know who our children are, the children know who their father are, the children know who their mother are. In this society, you don't have that. You have people using unprotected sex, people using condoms so they can just sleep about with whoever they want to sleep about, and it's very common within the Western culture. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the Muslim culture, but a true Muslim would get married, know who they would know who their parents are, and we would continue that lineage. But here you have a lot of single mums, people who don't know who their father is, which causes other further problems within society, because you have a lot of upset children who grow up in broken homes, who don't have those prominent parental figures, and they end up kind of going astray and kind of messing up the society. So this is why we're here to teach you people.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Like I said, the West needs to take responsibility and say, look, the low birth rates that are, like this particular killer was talking about, because he said it's about birth rate or whatever it was, is their own responsibility. If you're not getting married and you're not having babies and you're having 1.8 per household, and another community is having 3 to 4, which is normal.
He's right.
But the thing was that a lot of people think I'm scare tactic. This is a fact that the West has become too liberal, and what has happened, they're going to start losing their birth rates, and they will come to a point where you have a such stronger culture who has kept its traditional values. I'm not condemning that. I think it's a good thing. And don't abort babies, get married young, have a number of kids. They will start to increase their numbers.
But
and this is the
Muslims
fear.
want British people to have those values.
I know. So the thing is,
because they're good for the common good.
So this is the thing here. The fear is the fear mongering among the far right, is that they respect Islam, because when you listen to some of these, they respect the tradition. Let me say that.
Sorry, that wasn't me. That was a car.
Let me phrase it. They respect the strength of Islam in the sense that they see it as a culture or a religion that, when it comes to another place, it doesn't deviate from its main.
In my experience,
complex.
they understand precisely zero about Islam.
That's
They
right.
have this weird idea, it's some kind of death cult out there. They have no idea about real Islam at all, in my experience. I mean, some of them may have an inkling of it, but most have no idea at all. Islam is an extraordinary tradition that has many riches in it, that Western people can at least find a reminder of their own treasures they've forgotten, like traditional marriage, moral responsibility, and protecting children, the unborn child, and so on, or find it in Islam and come into the fold of Islam. But either way, there's a benefit. It's a win-win situation. If only Westerners would overcome their hostility and prejudice to something they don't understand.
That's right.
If they understood Islam and rejected it, I'd say fair dues. But I honestly don't think most of the right-wing people, they don't really understand Islam at all.
Yeah.
What they're rejecting is something that I wouldn't follow. I wouldn't follow what they're rejecting either. But they're not rejecting real Islam. That's why I became a Muslim, because I looked beyond the media, beyond the stereotypes, and discovered something that I didn't know existed, and it was called Islam, the real thing. And that's very different. And it's not a westernized Islam, by the way. I'm very traditional. I don't look very traditional, but it's not a westernized Islam. It's the full Monty. It's the real thing. That's the 4 schools, unchanged, unreformed, as we see throughout history. That's the Islam I'm talking about.
Don't you think there could be a meeting of minds in the middle? Because I do believe that...
but it has to start with them.
Hold on. No,
it definitely
needs to start with both sides.
them. No.
So hold on. I believe, look, the West has become too liberal, which is destroying itself, because liberal values, when it goes to the extreme, starts to kind of like self-implode. I also believe the Muslim community are too orthodox in a lot of ways.
But what's wrong with that, though?
So no, because then you're going to clash,
No, but wait, listen.
So
let me tell you something. Islam does not adjust to the people. The people adjust to Islam. We're not going to change our religion to please the West. I made that very clear.
Let me just finish. So what I believe the best route, or the best solution is for them to come both into that middle ground. And what I'm talking about middle ground is that you don't have to accept the West in terms of the culture. You don't have to go to a pub, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that, you don't have to agree with same-sex marriage and all that. But it's about being educated about that and accepting that the host nation, or the nation that we've come into, does have that as a culture.
It can do that.
And they're allowed to do it. So one of the things is, I have to admit, I went to my local area, I had to go somewhere that I've been going there for months. And we was talking about pubs last week. I don't drink for 6 years and I'm against drinking. But I do still go into pubs and I just have a Coke. And you can do it.
Okay, no.
You can go to a pub and just sit there. And
but don't expect Muslims to do it.
But what I'm saying is that the pub culture is part of British culture. It's just a fact. And so what's happening? I went to a certain area that I've been going for a long time, and there's a pub that used to walk past. That pub weirdly closed down since the last time I was there.
A lot of pubs are closed down.
And so this pub was closing down, and I was thinking to myself,
supermarkets, cheap booze, the changes in habits.
Yeah, but the pub, what I see as the pub for the British culture is a place where they congregate and they kind of socialise. Yeah. It's not necessarily about a drink, because I've gone to pubs, I don't drink anymore. So I think when you see the white indigenous population kind of walking past and saying, "Oh right, you know,
people have wine at home and wine in restaurants. It's not all pub centred anymore. It's changed."
I know, but what I'm saying is that
you've got clubs
what I'm saying is that when people are saying we feel like our way of life is changing, to us it may seem quite trivial, these pubs closing down, but to the people that were sitting in the pub just a week or two ago, it's probably a big thing that their local pubs shut down.
But that's not a Muslim problem, though.
No, but I'm not telling you. I'm trying to tell you to empathise why some people might start thinking that, okay, when an area becomes particularly demographically different, like maybe more Muslim, that certain things that they enjoy become taboo, and people don't
which
go
area,
there.
which area are we talking about?
I'm talking about Barking in that time.
Is that a heavily Muslim area?
It's kind of, it got a big white population, got quite a lot of Muslims, a few Sikhs, but I mean in terms of the Asian community, it's more Muslim rather than.
Right.
But
So
ultimately, we have to understand is England or Britain is 80% white. We have to lower it down to statistics, because they have this whole narrative that Muslims are taking over. Okay, how many Muslims are here in the UK? How many white people are here in the UK? And like I said, the media loves to fearmonger and scare people, which causes division and causes tension between the Muslim community and the British community. But on an everyday basis, right? We're around so many different people. Most of your shops are run by Muslims. Most of the restaurants that you go to are run by Muslims. Most of the doctors that you go to are Muslims. Most of the people that drop you home on a night out at 4 a.m. is Muslim. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So some of these people need to get this narrative out their head. And like I said before, if you really have a problem with Islam, go to the source of Islam, which is the Quran. Now that takes time and effort to actually read the Quran. If you're not willing to take the time and the effort to read the Quran and understand it for what it is, don't talk about Islam. Because you don't know what you're talking about.
Be honest,
because a lot of people get their source from the media. That's. If you ask somebody, how did you know about Islam? Oh, what I read in the news. Okay, well, have you read the Quran? No, I haven't. Have you met a Muslim? Yeah, I met about 2. These people need to get this ignorant mentality out of their head. It's like me. I can't make a judgment on Jews without actually understanding their religion, actually understanding their holy book, and understanding their values. I would not do it, because who am I to make an ignorant judgment on people that I don't know? Like yesterday when I asked you, Raj, what does Sikhism think about homosexuality? Because I generally don't know. So I'm waiting for you.
Same as in Islam.
That's what I'm saying to you. I'm waiting for you to give me
No, it's
information.
not the same as Islam.
They don't have a ruling on it. They don't speak about it in Sikhism.
It depends who you ask.
No. You're talking about Punjabi culture and Sikhism. It kind of a bit like Saudi Arabian culture.
Sikhs doing down here, and they say.
So let me say something. When it comes to Sikhs, we don't agree with our traditional values is that a man and a woman.
Yeah.
That is something that we propagate, and is the ideal situation that we want for our people and what God wants.
Yeah.
But if somebody is gay, what we do is that we treat them with respect. We don't ask for their death or anything or condemn them.
Neither do we.
And so, all right, so let's not go down this messy path.
I think it's the same, but you don't know.
No, so, no, it's not. It's totally different. So, basically, the thing is, I'll be honest with you, say to someone to read the Quran, if somebody's got a prejudice already, when they read it, they're going to read what they want.
Yeah.
You have to understand how the human mind works. So what people really need to do is, I think the Speaker's Corner as a whole is one good microcosm that people can start talking.
Yeah.
But that kind of narrative is spread out more around the UK. Like you said, you met someone at a bus stop. You want to tell that story?
Yeah.
Well, tell that story. It's quite funny.
No. I mean, I said this before on one of the other shows, but I was in Essex and I was going home and I met a white lady and we were both waiting at the bus stop. So we started conversating and I said, so where are you going? She goes, oh, I'm going down to London. I said, oh yeah, that's where I'm from. And she said to me, before telling her I'm Muslim or anything like that, she said to me, oh, I've been down to London and I see a lot of Muslims and they don't look really friendly. They don't smile at me and they just look, I tried to smile at them and they didn't smile at me back. I said, oh, is that the case? And she was like, yeah, I don't really know. There's a lot of Muslims in London. I don't know how to feel about it. I said, well, just to let you know, I'm Muslim. And she said, oh, I didn't want to offend you. But I said, no, it's absolutely fine. I said, look, at the end of the day, right, maybe those Muslims didn't smile at you because they could have had a bad day that day. Lord knows, you know what I'm saying to you. But I said, ultimately, I'm a Muslim. I don't hate you. We are very friendly people. It's within our nature. It's within our religion. One of the best, the Prophet peace be upon him said to us, always smile. That's the best thing to do, see somebody who smile. You understand what I'm saying to you? So, and we had this conversation and we actually had a good conversation. Towards the end, I feel like she kind of had a bit of more of an open mind about Muslims once she actually spoke to one. You know what I'm saying to you? So like you said, Speaker's Corner is a very good platform for people to conversate, to ask questions. I think one of the main things is to ask questions. A lot of people...
No, I think the main thing is to humanise people.
Yeah.
Because the problem is when you get to a stage and you're in an echo chamber, you're not speaking to people, you're only speaking to people that... Or when you Google, you're Googling certain things. Like, you know, you might Google, oh, Islam, is it religious? Or instead of saying, is Islam X, you might put a loaded word into it. So all your feedback comes back quite negative. So the best way for people to kind of move forward is to actually be able to talk to each other and realise that most people in the UK have the exact same problems. But we may just deal with them in a different way. And this is one of the things that I learned from like a year and a half, because I have to admit, my views have adjusted a lot over the last year and a half, and like how I thought a year and a half ago, because I was in an echo chamber.
I remember.
And
things you said about gay people were awful then.
Well, I used to say the word the F-A-G, but I wasn't homophobic though. I just said bad words. Yeah, and I understand.
It's like saying I use an N-word a lot, but I'm not racist. Yeah, right.
I know. I
it doesn't quite work.
And I haven't used it since.
No, I'm saying it's good. You've changed a lot.
So you can like adjust your behaviour. The only way I adjust my behaviour is to actually be open about my views. Do you understand?
Yeah.
If I come here and I went, okay, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to be quiet.
No, you just don't abuse people.
But it was like yesterday, right? We were speaking to Wendy, right? I don't know if you're familiar with Wendy, but anyway,
Wendy,
she was saying that the word Allahu Akbar gives her chills.
Oh yeah, this is very important.
And I spoke to her, and we were speaking about the reason why something about Muslims saying Allahu Akbar.
Lewis has also said that as
people saying that when they say Allahu Akbar before a terrorist attack, when she hears that word, it scares her, gives her chills, because before terrorists commit that attack, they say the word Allahu Akbar. And I'm saying to her, okay, fine, that's a reasonable concern to have. I said to her, do you know what Allahu Akbar means? And she confirmed, she said, God is great. I said, yeah. Allahu Akbar means God is great. If anything, we say it when we're very, very happy. Unfortunately, yes, we do have people that make a disclaimer and say Allahu Akbar to kind of show that I'm a Muslim, because you wouldn't be able to tell if they're a Muslim unless them saying Allahu Akbar. Who says that? Only Muslims. But I said, I'm very sorry to hear that that word makes you have chills, but ultimately that word means God is great, and you know, we say it more likely when we're happy. And I feel like me and her came to some sort of common ground because she raised her concerns, which was a really reasonable concern. I can understand why she feels like that, and as a Muslim I tried to kind of clarify and tell her that this word shouldn't even be used before or after committing a terrorist attack, because terrorist attack is haram, to blow yourself up is haram, it's forbidden in our religion. And hopefully she would have got some sort of understanding from that.
But do you see how that was more productive? Because what happens, unfortunately, when someone says something, you're an Islamophobe, you're racist, and straight away the person gets their back up, you get your back up, and you can't meet in the middle ground. So here you've met in the middle ground. She still feels a bit fearful about the word, but you understand why she feels fearful, and she knows that what she's feeling is irrational.
Right.
And she can fight it that way afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. I think the problem with the Muslims that we have today, they get offended and they fight fire with fire. And rather than having a conversation with these people that have these opposing views, because I feel like I don't have a problem with people criticizing Islam or kind of challenging Islam, because if it's an ideology that you don't understand and doesn't not conflict, doesn't go with your culture, I can understand why certain people wouldn't like it. Like Sophia Lewis, she said it. She said, "Why would I like Islam when Islam wants me dead because I'm a transsexual?"
It's
right?
a bit like
so
chickens like in
people
KFC.
like her, I can understand why they wouldn't agree with Islam, because it contradicts their way of life. But what I do have a problem with is when people openly disrespect the Prophet, disrespect Allah, disrespect Muslims, because we have a right to be offended. And as Muslims, we are very devoted to our religion. We love the Prophet, peace be upon him, more than our mothers and our children. We love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than our mothers and our children. So when we hear someone disrespecting Allah, disrespecting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're going to react. It's one of those things that really is a Muslim's weakness, to be honest with you. And the way Islamophobia is rising today, it's getting more and more out of hand, to the point where people are now being attacked. People are actually getting up out of their houses, going into mosques, attacking mosques, slapping up Muslim sisters. You know what I'm saying to you? And it's coming from them, it's not coming from us. I understand that we have also contributed to the violence, but now it's coming from them, and it's rising in numbers. The groups are getting bigger. You know, when they had that Punish a Muslim Day, that didn't get no news coverage.
It did get some.
No, it didn't. No, not the way if a Muslim done something, it would have got coverage. They had a point system. If you threw acid in a Muslim's face, you was going to get 500 points.
Now, we all condemn that.
What kind of nonsense is that?
Let's be thankful no one did anything.
Yeah, because they ain't on nothing, lad. You lot can talk and say what you want. We ain't doing nothing, man.
I look here. A lot of stuff that you're saying is true and stuff like that. But we kind of need to like have a solution about, you know, you have these people that see, like when I was hearing Ralph the other day, I felt like what he was saying was that Muslims are incompatible with being British.
Well,
That's what I felt.
I'm an Englishman who is a Muslim, and it's not incompatible.
Yeah.
You see, he might see Islam as is a Middle Eastern religion to do with an Arab guy from a long, long time ago. But Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion about a brown-skinned, Aramaic-speaking Jew from 2,000 years ago from the Middle East. And Christians worship this dude.
That's right.
I mean, how ironic is that? Christians actually worship a dark-skinned Jewish guy from the Middle East who never spoke a word of English, as far as I'm aware. The language didn't exist from 2,000 years ago, and yet they have a problem with an Arab, the same colour skin, same kind of part of the world, who spoke a very similar language, a Semitic language. Arabic and Aramaic are very similar, and who taught actually essentially the same thing. Actually, when you look at what Jesus actually taught in the early Gospels and what Islam teaches, it's the same. So this is the oddity that Christians.
There's a lot of double standards.
Christians have a problem here.
But we have a lot of British people like that.
We have our Middle Eastern religion, and we think that's fine. But your religion is foreign.
Yeah, but you know that a lot of there's atheism is growing in the West, so we can't use.
Is it? I thought atheism is worldwide is getting smaller and smaller.
For me, I don't meet many open Christians or devout Christians apart from a speaker's corner. So what I'm saying is that the kind of arguments that you could use about Christianity being similar to Islam and Judaism is fine and it's true. But we now have a population of a lot of white indigenous population that are atheists. So, like one of the things is that they don't. If you're an atheist, you don't believe in a soul, in essence, in terms of when there's a baby. So, when you're talking about fetuses and stuff, they don't see it anything apart from just some kind of, just a fetus, nothing else. But for us as being religious, we see a soul in there. We see a person. So we're looking at it from
it's still a human being. I mean, a fetus is just Latin for young.
I know, but
it's still an unborn child. It's just a question of language here. If you use language, it's like the Americans used to say in Vietnam, collateral damage, i.e. wiping out a whole bunch of Vietnamese. Yeah. If you just use language, this is an unborn human being.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%.
It's not a question of being a Muslim to say that. You can be an atheist to say that.
But what I'm saying is it's easier for an atheist to have the mindset that, I don't believe in a soul. So it's easier for them to transition from that to that. Yeah. Also, when it comes to religion, like, you don't hear me saying anything about Muhammad. You don't hear me saying anything about Allah. You don't hear me saying anything about the Quran.
Because you have that respect.
But it's about mutual respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I have my own religious books. I have my own gurus, people that I respect and love, like you respect and love Muhammad. And I also believe in Wahid. I believe in God. You may call it Allah, call it Wahid.
Yeah.
So I don't go down that route because I have my own belief. But for an atheist, we cannot expect the same level of respect. So I can't expect an atheist to respect my religion and stuff like that. Because for them, they have a different outlook on life. So you can expect it from me. So if I said something to you, you'd have a right to curse back my religion.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do that.
I'm not saying you would.
Can I just say something?
I'm just saying
as Muslims, we have principles. Yeah, we have morals. We wouldn't go out of our way. The way that the Christians come here and they openly call the Prophet, peace be upon him, a paedophile. We would never say such thing about Jesus. We wouldn't attack them personally, right? Or we wouldn't be abusive or disrespectful. Rather, we'd rather challenge the ideologies.
Say your name.
Hello. Rather than being disrespectful and being abusive and kind of cursing their God and cursing their prophet, we'd rather challenge the ideologies.
For me,
but I have heard it both ways. I've heard a lot of people saying that, did God come out of a woman's vagina and stuff like that?
But that's a reasonable question, though.
But I'm saying
that's not disrespectful. It's nothing compared to being the prophet being called a paedophile and all these other things, bro.
You said the same. This is very interesting. What is offence? Because to you that's not offensive, but to a Christian that's offensive. This is why free speech is so important, because I could find one thing offensive and you don't find it offensive. Exactly like now. So when someone says God came out of a woman's vagina, to a Christian that is blasphemous and very offensive. To you, it means it's like you're critiquing.
But it's true. That's what I'm about to say. We're stating facts.
That's the problem.
I can use the same logic when people are criticising Islam. Yeah. It does say certain things.
Can I go back to atheism? One minute. This is just
one second.
Politics.
One second. Yeah. This is so important about free speech and why I'm a free speech absolutist. Because offence here is very subjective. Now, if I called Bob the Builder and said, God come out of God come out of woman, he'd be extremely offended.
Would he?
He's offended at everything. I mean, he's offended at...
No, but most Christians would be
hold on,
offended
can I say
by
something?
that.
I want you to speak about the atheist problem. And then
can
I just say one thing? I want to talk about solutions afterwards.
Exactly, that's what we're talking about. Atheism in the West. Atheism in the West is Atheism in the West is not a
Who's she
positive.
talking to? I thought she was talking to you.
No.
I thought she was asking if you're a boy or a girl.
But I do not like dogs, sir.
I thought she was asking if you're a boy or a girl.
Very funny.
What was it? Was it a dog? I can't see nothing.
2 dogs.
Oh, it's 2 dogs. Oh, this is something else here.
Raj.
That I've mentioned. I don't.
Let me
Yeah.
ask me to
I
speak.
don't like dogs,
Right,
sir.
Big up
atheism.
dogs. Love dogs.
The problem with atheism,
big up.
it has nothing to contribute to our Western civilization. Our civilization now doesn't understand why it exists. It doesn't seem to have any meaning left. It doesn't have a purpose anymore. There's no transcendent purpose that animates us all to think, yeah, this is what we're about as a people. But we've lost that. We now live in an age of materialism, extreme individualism, where pleasure and money and career are it, and that's kind of it, really. Now, one of the
It's for the now, basically.
It's for the now.
we choose
One
the
of the
deen
things
over
one of the
dunya.
things that Islam can contribute, if only Westerners would listen, is the sense that God is the ultimate reality. He's the reason we exist. That there is actually life beyond this life. That we will be held accountable for our actions, and so we must behave well in this life because God cares about what we do. We'll be held accountable for our actions, and also that we've been given a guidelines to live successfully in this life. So traditional morality, respecting unborn children, the difference between men and women, different gender roles, charity, help for the poor, concern for the oppressed, and injustice, a freeing of slaves, and so on. All that the Quran talks about.
There is a death penalties for certain. I don't want. Let's not get negative.
Well, we can talk about the death penalty
we're
issue
talking
as well.
We're talking a different area because I want to talk about positivity. About
But I'm just saying, in the West, atheism has not given us any of these answers. It's obsessed with science. It's obsessed with the here and now. It doesn't go beyond materialism. So atheism doesn't have an answer. What it is to be human, what it is to live well, what it is to.
I'll bring up the dog. Bring him over. Bring him over.
I allow it, man. Don't be bringing that dog here, fam. Bro, don't be bringing that dog here.
We don't love dogs.
Let me say
over
something.
there.
This is one other thing I want to touch upon in terms of cultures clashing. Like
So,
Britain. Hold on.
What about what I just said? You just anything? We just
Oh, you,
watching
yeah,
the
you
dogs.
saw yeah about yeah.
I listen. I agree
about
with
atheism
everything
All right,
you
so-
said.
and how we rejuvenate our culture, our civilization, and atheism doesn't have a way to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, okay, and Islam does have solutions.
I think there's a middle ground.
It offers a spiritual vision for life, how we live for God,
They have. Wait, listen. Allow it. I beg you, allow it, man.
which is very distracting.
Please, Aki, get that dog.
All right, so
Allow it, please.
so basically, I agree with you. Like, you know, there is Islam has one thing on lockdown that even when I look out, I respect. I'm like, you have the traditional value systems on lockdown, and it's not deviating. And I'm not asking you to deviate your
When you
beliefs.
say on lockdown, you mean?
I mean that you've got that kind of system in place of knowing.
We have that system,
You
right?
have that system of knowing
but
that
the
the
thing is,
traditional
listen,
families is the
Raj,
way.
Raj,
to
can I
survive.
say
And we can
something?
offer that to remind Westerners of
Yeah.
their own traditional values, which are the same values actually.
But
this
we're
is
not
principles.
forcing anybody to accept our values the same way that I
can't
have.
anyway. I mean,
Exactly,
we
and the
don't
West
have the
shouldn't
power.
expect us to also accept their way of life. At the end of the day, I think Islam and the Western culture and ideologies
Need to
can
meet in the
live coincide without them compromising their way of life. I generally think that can happen. Especially remember, we Muslims. We live here. If we generally wanted to, we could go somewhere else but the thing is, because you have
Somewhere warm.
extremist Muslims
love
who
the
say
cold weather.
we want
With nice
Sharia
food.
and we don't like all these gay people. There are places where you could live like that, but me, I don't want to. I'm very happy where I'm at because I generally do feel like I can be Muslim. I can be who I want in this
And you're
country.
British as well.
And I'm
Yeah, so
British.
big up,
I'm
big up.
Muslim before anything. You know, my mother, my 2 sisters, they all wear the headscarf and they live normal lives. They go to school, they study, they're able to be Muslim. But we do have an ongoing issue. We do have tension from the right wing, from the white supremacists, and it's coming from them now. And it's a matter of time until things boil over. So my solution personally is I think I can tell that these people have concerns, right? And like Wendy said, she's scared of the word Allahu Akbar because it's used after a terrorist attack is committed, which I can understand. Now, if she was to ask those questions to the right people and they would conversate in a respectful manner and put their issues across and people would have conversations, I think that's a first step because a lot of these people don't understand Islam. They generally don't have a clue about Islam. They don't understand our ways of life. And if I think we broke it down to them and kind of explained the 5 fundamental foundations of Islam and what our intentions are.
Let me say something. You're getting too complicated. It's very simple. That.
No, but do you not think we should have conversations, though?
No, you should.
We should have
That's what I'm saying,
conversations.
conversation. But one of the problems is when you start going into the fundamentals of your religion, it will start to kind of put people up. What it is that all you
No,
need to
I don't,
do.
because they have to. Look, some of them. Look, some of these white supremacists have a problem with us praying. They've said it. That is a part of the 5 fundamental foundations of Islam. We have to pray 5 times a day. And they have a problem with that in itself. They don't like the fact that we pray. Or why do you pray on the streets? Or why do you pray here? Why do you pray there? So we have to explain to them that this is a part of our religion. Why do we pray 5 times a day? Why is it not okay to take some time out of your daily life? You might be busy at work and say, you know what, I'm going to go pray. Go and meditate, if you want to call it that. Go and meditate. Go and pray to my God and get back to daily life. Why is that a problem?
I think this is more of an atheist issue. I don't really meet people that believe in God that go, we don't want you to pray. Like, I've never had an issue at all with Muslims praying in the park. I don't really care. Like, if you're praying, you're not interfering with me. But what you do see is people that don't have a religion find it a little bit overwhelming.
I get that.
So for me, I know praying is not a problem because Sikhs pray. Yeah, but if you're not from that background, that's what I'm saying. We need to look through the lens of these individuals. It may not even be rational what they're thinking, but when they're seeing certain things, and the thing is that the first thing we need to start doing is like being able to talk without one side calling the other side a Nazi and the other side going, oh, you're an Islam.
We have to have the right people and the right representatives. We have to have the right representatives.
So people, like even now when we're having a discourse, that we should be able to talk and talk openly and criticise without each side going, all right, we're not going to talk to you afterwards, you're this, you're that. Because you're never going to be able to... So if that happened to me when I came here, I would still have the same views, do you understand? But I had certain individuals come up to me and go, Raj, we're going to speak to you privately, and we had a good chat and stuff. So it is quite a simple idea, like I said, it is a simple idea, but it's going to be so hard to do because most people are too stubborn or just don't want to talk.
But I think the educational system is very important because I think racism is taught. Nobody's ever born racist or prejudiced. That is taught by their parents based on what their parents taught and based on this racist ideology. I think in school, from a young age, when we talk about speaking about sex education in school, scrap that for now, up until they're a certain age. But I think teaching tolerance is one important thing. Teaching about religions, teaching acceptance in primary school, you know, because we're living in a
shouldn't we teach about tolerance to homosexuals and transgenders as well?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah. I would say include that as well.
But tolerance is not the same as approval.
Yeah.
Because
right.
we're now being asked and been taught in our schools to approve of transsexuals and so on, and use certain pronouns, and we're potentially critically offensive. We don't use these pronouns. This is not tolerance. This is takeover. This is
indoctrination.
But do you not see how your language
is quite
inflammatory?
This is liberal.
But your language is quite inflammatory.
It's indoctrination, mate.
I don't think so.
You're saying it's a takeover.
It is.
And so I don't think you're understanding
what it is,
some of the narrative I hear about. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong.
Let me say, because you talk. It is a cultural revolution, and everyone is expected to conform. It's like Mao's China. There's a cultural revolution. If you didn't conform, you were punished. You were publicly ridiculed. You'd lose your job. You were put on display, and you were shouted at. It's the same kind of things happening now. If we don't, with the latest cultural and ethical fashion in the West, and I say 10 years' time it'd be paedophilia, X years' time it'd be incest.
Animals.
We've all got to keep.
This is where you
Raj, hang on.
What do you mean? You
Raj,
scare
we're-
more all the time now.
Sister.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So I'm accusing you, you're accusing me.
Bro,
So-
they do that.
Raj.
Yeah.
So the problem we Muslims
They
have
have
is
sex with dogs.
we're always expected to approve of the latest fashion in the West, which is then enforced on us, on our children. Our children are forced to accept it, and adults have to be silent, or we're publicly we far from our jobs or whatever. This is the reality of living in Britain in the 21st century, and in France, and in the United States, and in Germany. It's happening in a lot of places. But Muslims are stubborn. We're not going to just submit to the world,
right.
because Islam is a call to submit to God alone.
That's it.
But we will respect other people. As a transsexual person, I'll give them their respect and their rights, but they cannot ask me to approve it as a normal, healthy lifestyle that I want my kids to adopt.
That's right.
Or I want my kids to be taught about as a normal thing. Because it
Definitely.
ain't. I'm sorry, my religion says it's not an approved lifestyle. It's something that we should actually leave if we can. It's the same with gay marriage and homosexual relationships. Gay. We have our standards. They're not going to change because the Quran is fixed. And Christians used to think like this, and some still do. But most
changed.
of them, unfortunately, they have submitted to the West. They become like humanists. They become secular humanists with a bit of Christianity sprinkled on top. So Muslims are the odd one out because we haven't submitted to the West and its ever-changing values. And they're always changing, always demanding we keep up and approve of these values. Next time it'll be this,
Like
next time it'll be this.
trend. We don't want to follow
Well,
it.
we have stable, rooted values, rooted in revelation. Revelation doesn't change.
Set in stone.
Set in
Clear
stone.
cut.
God doesn't change. God has mercy, he has compassion, but he's not going to tell us, oh, by the way, my revelation was wrong.
But can I say something? You know, their culture and their way of life is actually a test for us Muslims. If anything, it helps us, brother. You know why? Because the more fitna that's in front of us and the more that we abstain from that, it actually guarantees us a place in Jannah. So whilst they plan, Allah plans and Allah is the best of planners. But can I just add to his point? And I keep on saying this, but I want to say it again. Islam does not adjust to the people adjust to Islam. And that's that. We're never going to change for nobody. Islam is set in stone.
In terms of its core beliefs.
Change your attitude towards dogs, though, because we love dogs here, man. But let me just say something.
I like dogs.
All right, so let me say something. Let me say.
I couldn't eat one.
Look, what I'm hearing is a lot of hypocrisy.
Korea,
there's a lot of hypocrisy going on here in the sense that what you're saying is scaremongering about gay people. That they're gonna, if you let people,
I'm not scaremongering about gay people. I'm saying we shouldn't be forced to approve of lifestyles as Muslims.
Let me just say something.
That's all I'm saying.
Hold on. I do not look. I'm a traditional value. I'm for traditional values. You know that. But educating children that these people are there is not the same as propagating
Raj, that's not what's happening.
It's
not just that, it's approving.
He's talking about tolerance, you're talking about approval.
Tolerance is one thing, approval is something else.
I had two things here that I thought were very, very inflammatory. One, you said that if you start teaching this, they will start teaching paedophilia is okay. And on top of that, she said sex with animals.
It's happening,
that,
bro.
To me, is demonizing a community that, although I don't...
But shouldn't sex with animals be demonised? Shouldn't paedophilia be demonised?
It should be demonised.
Can you not see that what you're doing is the same thing as the far right is doing with Muslims?
They're demonising a faith. We're demonising things that need to be demonised. Are you telling me it's not demonic to go and have sex with a dog or have sex with a young child?
We're talking about homosexuality.
Even homosexuality, sorry, that's demonic, bro. I don't care. So that's demonic. That's demonic.
So the thing is here, you're equating that you're trying to do a domino effect here, which, in my opinion, is very inflammatory. You're saying that if you start accepting homosexuality, the next stage is going to be paedophilia and then sex with dogs.
Right.
So what I'm going to say is that is the same narrative. That is the same narrative as the far right is doing that. If we let Islam in here, it's going to take over and then all of our way of life are going to decrease.
But that's actually real fear-mongering.
Raj, you didn't hear what we said. We said that the Islamic values are rooted and fixed in revelation. Okay, the Quran says that any sexual intimacy outside of heterosexual marriage is completely forbidden.
I'm not talking about that.
Hang on, I'm not. Let me finish. So, when schools say we should show respect and tolerance towards gay people or transsexuals, Muslims will say yes. Everyone should have respect as human beings. Yeah. But when schools say that we should approve of these lifestyles, that we should say they're acceptable and normalise these things,
you're
not listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah, I am listening.
I'm saying what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Then traditional Catholics, evangelicals, traditional Sikhs, traditional Hindus, traditional Orthodox Jews, and Muslims will all go, oh my God, no. Because we don't want our children to be indoctrinated in ideologies that normalise behaviours which are not from God. But when it comes to individual transsexuals or gay people or lesbians or whatever, we must respect them as human beings and accord them their rights as human beings, but doesn't mean we have to approve of them.
That's right.
All right.
So now let me give an example. Now, this is not new to Muslims. Muslims don't drink. We think it's wrong for us to drink. But we work with people who drink alcohol, who go to pubs. We don't judge them and condemn them and say you don't have your rights.
That's right.
We allow them to have their rights. Yeah. So it's not a question of you're mixing up tolerance with approval. They're not the same thing.
And that's what we expect.
Let me say something.
We advocate tolerance.
No. 2 seconds, brother. Let me just add to this point.
It's going to be 2 seconds.
Okay. What I'm saying to you is, I beg you, stop. What I'm saying to you is, we expect tolerance back from them as well. We're not expecting them to approve of Islam as well. The same thing that we expecting from them, we also expect the same back. You know what I'm saying to you? We're not saying to them accept Islam and become Muslim and do what we do. We're just asking for simple respect. It'd be nice, inshallah.
Please don't disturb me for 1 minute. I'm asking you. You are doing a straw man argument. I'm not telling you to say that your views on homosexuality is wrong or right. What I'm saying to you is that you're demonizing the community by saying, if we allow this homosexuality to be propagated in the schools, the next stage will be paedophilia and then having sex with animals. That is demonizing that group because you're saying that by allowing them to be who they are, it will then be a domino effect and the whole of society will become deranged and debauched.
No.
The same
That's
thing
your
is,
language.
The same
not
thing is, debauched. Having sex with dogs and with their children is debauched, in my opinion. So basically, when it comes to the far right, what they are saying is this: that if we allow Muslims to practice their faith, orthodox, in the way they want, the West will start to lose, and they'll have a knock-on effect, a negative effect. That's scaremongering as well. What you're doing is the exact same thing, and I'm going to call that the hypocrisy of it. Because you're scaremongering a particular community. Remember, I'm not
Which
the
community?
I'm the LGBTQ community. I'm not the LGBTQ warrior. Because a lot of people think I'm a warrior for the LGBT. I'm not. I just like to support the minorities here and people that are
You said 1 minute. You've had 2 minutes. Let me have my minute. Look, it is on record that I am a person with same-sex attraction. Yeah. So in the language of some people out there, I'm gay, but I don't practice. I don't do anything about it. No. So it's not that I'm demonising them lot. I'm someone who has same-sex attraction, and I can't help that. It's just the way I am. Yeah.
Same with Colin. Big up Colin.
No, hang on. So I'm not going to get married to a woman because it wouldn't be just to her because I couldn't have sexual relations, right? So I'm not demonising them lot. What I'm saying is someone who understands. I used to be part of that community, the LGBT whatever, many years ago. I'm no longer part of it. When I became a Christian, I left it. But what I'm saying is I'm not demonising community. I'm saying as Muslims we have a problem. That from the 1960s onwards, the West keeps on changing the goalposts. It keeps on changing the rules of the game. In 1960, abortion on demand was allowed. And we think killing unborn children is murder. Then there was free available of artificial contraception. Then there was the decriminalising of homosexuality. Then there was gay marriage. And then there was this. And then there was the West keeps on telling us to adopt new standards, new ethics. It keeps on changing the goalposts. It keeps on changing us to jump through another hoop. Because if we don't do it,
well, you're saying objective morality.
We are somehow failing as British citizens, and as we keep on changing our morality to conform to an ever-changing Western morality. And I tell you, in the future, 10 years ago, I remember it was unthinkable that there would be something called gay marriage. Unthinkable. But now it's accepted everywhere. Right? Unthinkable. And I tell you, in 10 years' time, or however many years' time, my prediction that paedophilia will be seen as completely normal and acceptable, and Muslims are saying, "Why are you so un-British? And why are you accepting paedophilia?"
I don't think
I'm not scared
or sex with animals
because it happens in the industry, bro.
Sister,
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. You're saying it's going to be accepted.
Raj, hang on. So I'm saying that Muslims are required, it seems, always to keep up with the latest changes in Western morality. Now, Islam is rooted in fixed, unchanging values that God has ordained. We can't change our morality. Now, I know Christians change their morality. The Church of England, for example, is always changing its views because it's given up. It follows on. The society changes. The Church trots on behind like a poodle and adopts its values. Yeah, the Church of England does it. The Methodist Church does it. The URC does it. Quakers do it. They all do it. Even the Catholic Church is sort of moving in that direction a bit.
They don't like
but
Islam
Muslims, because we're stubborn on the revelation of God, we will not bend the knee to whatever fashion, passing fashion. It'll change again in 5 years' time.
Also, can I ask you a hypothetical?
Because we follow God, we don't follow men who are constantly changing their minds about what is and what is, changing the goalposts. And that's what we can remind British people about. Their Christian tradition, which is also rooted in revelation. Remind them of their own values, which they have chosen in the name of pleasure, short-term gains and whatever. Remind them of that. They have to become Muslim. Just be faithful to God and the tradition they've been given, and then there'll be better people, happier people. Our society will have fewer divorces, fewer abortions, happier people. It will be a better society if they do that. And that's what we can contribute as Muslims, to remind them of those values that make for the common good. Because we've lost those values.
Well, I agree with you on this.
Thank you. We can all go home now.
I agree with you on the sense that I've always said that I'm for traditional values, and I believe the only way to sustain a civilization or people is to have traditional values. Now, I'm not arguing what you are saying is totally wrong. What I'm trying to say is this, you had these people here, transgenders, homosexual, people that we don't agree with their lifestyles maybe, they're there. What do you do? Do you just ostracize them and demonize them?
No, we're not saying that.
I've already told you, I'm one of those, but I'm someone with same-sex attraction.
but you don't practice.
Exactly. So I'm not demonizing myself.
Let me ask you a hypothetical though. Right now, there's an issue up in Birmingham, which is kind of causing tensions around the country
we
as well.
Discussed this already.
But what I'm saying is that in a hypothetical, because what they're saying, what would happen if the whole of the UK started taking their kids out of these classes.
Yeah, let them do it.
I hope they do.
Let them do it. Let them do it, fam. They have that right.
Let me ask you, say if they raise that age, because I do believe 5 years old is way too young here. That is silly. But what if they raise that age to 10 years old?
Well, I think I agree with this lady here. 16.
16, yeah. I said 16. Zabeda.
Zabeda, I agree with Zabeda. 16.
Yeah.
Because kids shouldn't be told about sex. They shouldn't be told about sodomy. They shouldn't be told about transsexuality and all this.
But you say about in the Bible, it's about sodomy with Lot and all that.
I'm talking about the Bible. I'm talking about.
I know, but they read that anyway.
Yeah, but the way
I'm
they're
not sure they
teaching
read
them
the
is
whole
promoting
Bible.
it.
There's some really dirty bits in Ezekiel, which I won't even speak on camera, which are.
But the Quran doesn't speak about it like that.
What I'm saying is, in schools, our kids should not be taught that. They shouldn't be taught this is normal behaviour. So if you see, it's all about parental rights here. Parents have a right that their children should be given education in English, in maths, and geography, not on these matters unless they're much older, when they're mature enough to actually understand what's been spoken about and make their own decisions. So it's right that parents should take their kids, and the Secretary of State is acknowledging this now. You see, because we have a Conservative government. The Conservative government is a natural ally of parents. They believe in parents' control, and ironically, the government has forced this on their children, and now they're backing off the Secretary of State, saying, okay, maybe we should.
They're giving more rights to the government than they are to the parents. Even things with like social services. If you go and hit your child, then social services have the right to go and take your kid.
Yeah, I don't
they're trying to make. This is how the society is breaking down. And the system has a huge. The system has a huge part to play in it, because they're giving the kids more rights over their own parents. Yeah. And this is how the society is breaking down. And this has got nothing to do with Islam. If anything, like this brother said, Islam has the solution. But I'm not expecting. I
wouldn't go that far. But you have good points.
I'm not expecting people to accept it, because there is no compulsion in religion. If they don't want to accept it, that's fine. But they do not have the right to try and change our views, and we don't have the right to change their views.
You're saying you're not going to change ever, and the other side is saying they're not going to change ever. How are you ever going to come to
what are we doing though?
I'm not telling you to
change
your religion.
The only thing they have a problem with that is the fact that we're Muslim. They don't like the fact that we're Muslim.
I'm not telling you to change your fundamentals of your religion. I'm just saying be more accepting of other people and other people's lives.
We're accepting other people as human beings. You see, in Islam, there's no concept of gay or lesbian or anything. It doesn't exist. People are human beings, and they're made to worship God. Now, Islam has always acknowledged that people with certain feelings. If you're looking back in the classical discussions, it's always acknowledged that. But it's never identified people by their sexuality, like that's a gay person. That doesn't exist in Islam. So we are told to always respect other people and give them their legal rights. But we're not encouraged to indoctrinate our children that these lifestyles are normal and acceptable.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. We're not disagreeing.
And Catholics agree with us on this. Traditional Jews, even traditional atheists would agree with us on this. So it's not a Muslim issue. It's a, if you like, a traditional versus liberal issue.
I agree with you. Yeah. I'm just saying that maybe there needs to be a bit more of a compromise. The government is saying 5 years old. I'm saying, you lot are saying 16. I mean, why not come in the middle ground, like 11 or 12 years old?
There's no middle ground, that's just younger. So, we think...
Are you saying to me that there's not a difference between a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old?
I'm saying that
they're still too young.
They don't have the emotional maturity, the life experience at 5 or 10. 16 is a much better age, because then they can make informed decisions about human beings out there in society. Telling a 5-year-old kid about this stuff.
I disagree with that.
It's just wrong.
It's not important to their life.
And it's not important to their life. So it's learn about maths and English.
That's right.
So we're always going to kind of like disagree on that particular issue, but in generally, like, this situation about, like the way I hear this narrative from the far right that, Muslims can't be in the West and they can't be British. This is a narrative that is concerning for me as well, because I do believe that Muslims are part of the West and are an integral part of the UK as well. And I do believe that, Muslims are British. They're not like they can be British. And the people on the white indigenous population need to start accepting as well.
I do.
Yeah, it's not just it's not just a one way. Yeah. But there are people I've heard it that, Muslims can't be British, Muslims can't be this shit. So the thing is that, I'm British Punjabi Sikh. If you want to classify yourself as a British Pakistani Muslim, that's fine with me. I don't care what order you see yourself in, but you need that component of being British in order for us to have some kind of social cohesion.
Come back to the far right. If you actually read far right stuff on the internet, like the alt-right and so on, which I do, you'll find that they share, this is a very unpopular thing to say, But people go, oh, how can you say that? But many of their concerns are the same as our concerns. They also support traditional marriage. They also are against third-wave feminism. This idea that women are interchangeable with men and that gender is a social construct.
That's one thing Islam's got right.
Right. So teaching their kids in school, they actually, on a whole range of issues that we've been talking about, they would agree with us.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, Ralph said that. He said he agrees with a lot of what you said.
This is the irony of this. The far right, who you say are hostile, they are hostile to Muslims, actually agree with Muslims.
But this is the point that we're trying to say.
This is the irony.
This is why fine. We agree more than we actually do.
We actually agree.
So what Ralph was saying on the live stream was that he sees Islam as a powerful force that he respects in a way in terms of its traditional structure.
He doesn't.
When I say respect, I don't mean it in the way you think, but as a force that's strong. So yeah, we condemn that. And I said it. You're mad I said it. You crazy. Oh, Ralph said it. Sorry. I thought you said Raj. So basically, when it and I totally condemn that. I'm not going to associate with him, yeah. But I think it's not my bedroom. So basically, when it comes to this situation, yeah, when it comes to this situation, yeah, about the whole kind of like with Ralph. He believes that
Yeah.
Are you going to join the conversation? Are you going to join the conversation?
And then someone said, I condemn them.
Are you joining the conversation?
Does that make any sense? Come on,
Are you going to join the conversation? Are you going to join the conversation? You're a hypocrite.
If a Muslim said
You're
that,
mad. You're a hypocrite. You're a homophobe. You're crazy. The amount of bullshit comes out your channel, anti-black, anti-white, all of this now.
Let's not go into that. Let's not go into that.
So basically, yeah, when it comes to this situation with Ralph, yeah, he believes that Islam is such a strong force that it cannot exist with Islam. Do you understand?
But it can.
It's like two strong civilizations that can't coexist. I believe they can though.
Okay, Raj, I'm an Englishman, born an Englishman, a true Englishman. I love my country. I'm a Muslim. I love Islam. I don't want to water it down, reform it, change it, liberalise it in any way whatsoever. I'm telling you, he's wrong. He's wrong. And if he'd like to come to me, I can explain to him why he's wrong. That my English heritage, my traditional values are very, very similar. They overlap a lot. In fact, it means a rediscovery of our English heritage. Our respect for our elders, our respect for our parents, our respect for men and women.
Parents is a
if it comes down to majority and minority.
Let me give you an example from English history, Raj. Not that anyone's going to listen. Example of English history. There's a guy called Thomas More, who is Henry VIII's Chancellor. He was executed in the Tower of London in the 16th century, and he said that he remained the king's good servant, but God's first. And this is very Islamic, that we can be at loyalty to our country, but ultimately we are. God comes first. And that's there in our English tradition. This is the ultimate martyr in our history. But it's a very Islamic sentiment as well. We can be loyal English people or British people, but God comes first. That's not just Islam, that's in England as well. So I say to him, these things are very compatible, and I can explain to him more in detail if he wants to know.
Yeah, I mean,
can I say something? I think the majority of Muslims do not hate the West, do not want war, they just want peace. The majority of British people do not want war, just want peace. We have to, compare the statistics. The majority of people are fine living side by side. Unfortunately, we have these minorities, these groups, these extremists who get too much airtime. I think the media gives them too much airtime. They give them too much airtime. They're pushing out this white extremism, they're pushing out this terrorists to scare the people. Because I think the media also has a hidden agenda, but I'm not going to go into that. But like I said, London alone, very multicultural society, very diverse. You have all sorts of people living here side by side, working together, living together and respecting each other. It's when you start to go outside of London and start to go to these countryside areas like Essex or like Manchester or like Kent, that's where the white supremacist presence, you'll feel it a lot there because there's not a lot of other groups living in that area. So I think
that's just because they haven't spoken to people. Yeah. I meet a lot of these people that you probably think are Nazis and stuff like that. But they're genuinely just like people that haven't met people outside of their own kind of like little echo chamber. And I guarantee you, if they started talking to people and started realising, all right, Muslims have the same concerns as us, the same problems, but we just have a slightly different way of life. You know, that's how you kind of alleviate the problem. You don't go around, you know, saying, all right, that person's a Nazi if they start criticising you, or the other vice versa. If you say something like, oh, she's a jihadi or something like that. Yeah. I do disagree with that newspaper calling that baby a jihadi baby and stuff like that, which I found very dehumanising and disrespectful. So there is this kind of like demonisation that I do see a double standard as well. So I'm not going to say what you lot are saying is, you know, you don't have any valid points. But all I'm saying is that in order for us to kind of move forward as a people, we have to start talking first, and even if it's quite...
Well, that's what I said.
Even if it's quite... No, but what I'm saying, even if it's quite harsh, like in terms of what we're saying, you might hear stuff like, oh my God, that person's being so disrespectful, or they'll be like when you heard that lady saying in the bus stop, and well done for not go crazy.
No, I was calm, you know what I'm saying?
Could you imagine if you...
Because that's what Islam teaches us, sabr. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was attacked so many times. He was called
patience.
That's right.
Do dawah,
no, it's not about dawah, because I'm trying to show you how Muslims are supposed to react whilst they're being attacked. Allah says, do not be the aggressors. Allah does not like the aggressors. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So when we are in a situation, to my dear Muslim brothers and sisters, where Islam is being attacked, where the Prophet is being attacked, we have to establish sabr, we have to establish patience, because these are the traits. This is the sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Do not be like them. Allah does not like the aggressors. Do not be the aggressor. Rather defend yourself, but even then, treat them with kindness and treat them with forgiveness. This is Islam. This is what I'm trying to promote here.
All right, so I think I'm not going to be back for 3 weeks, so you got a bit of a rest on me.
Okay.
And so it's Vaisakhi, the most holiest
Nah, bro.
It's the most holiest month for the Sikhs. So happy Vaisakhi
yeah,
for the
he's
Sikhs.
doing the Sikh thing. I'm going to Egypt,
if I don't come back, so I've got a lot of things to plan.
Well, good to see you,
It was great to talk to you, and big up. I'll still be on the live streams here and there. Anyway, well done, everybody.
Can you please comment on...
Bless you,
You seem to be very concerned about the Muslims. Can we comment on the rapes in India? There is a rape every 12 seconds. Since I've stood here, 3 women would have got raped already. What have you done to stop that? You seem too worried about the Muslims. How about your own country? Yeah. How about your heritage? Because you are Indian, aren't you? Can we talk about the rape in India, please? Because
but he doesn't practice, he believes it's wrong.
Content over everything. From your melody.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
Brother, صدق يكون في احنا انت.
I don't listen to ITV. I don't even listen to ITV. I just listen to COE. I don't listen to ITV. I don't even listen to Sky.
We're ready, bro. We're ready. We're ready, yeah? So we had this crazy topic earlier. Talking to my brother Ali and many other brothers. And Wiggins over here. Bro, DK.